What does vengeance sound like when chains rattle in the dark? Imagine thick, humid air, heavy as sorrow itself, draping over the cotton fields of 1852 Mississippi. The cicadas drone in the oppressive night. They're the faintest heartbeat before. A storm. There, just beyond the flicker of a single lamp, the overseer stands, whip coiled in one hand, lantern swaying in the other. His silhouette is all swagger and cruelty, a man who believes himself untouchable. But what no one saw was the silent gathering in the shadows. 4 enslaved men, their faces drawn, hearts pounding in sync with the thrum of distant insects. Each bead of sweat feels like freighted history. They bear the weight of broken families and stolen futures. The whip cracks. It sings the overseer's power. But in that same moment, in hearts hidden from view, a darker song awakens. Ask yourself, would you have dared to listen? These 4 men, silent, watchful, carry a plan carved from years of pain. Their bones carry centuries of suffering. Their minds, months of whispered plotting, stolen glances, careful nods. There's a stillness before violence that tastes metallic on the tongue. Across the cotton rows, the only sound is the whisper of wind through leaves and the subdued rustle of bodies shifting in alignment. It's a violent quiet, a hateful calm. Tonight, chains will not only rattle, they will bind fate itself. The overseer, drunk on assumed dominance, will soon discover the tremors beneath his feet. The air grows heavier, thick with repressed fury. And as the lantern's glow flickers against calloused hands and clenched jaws, the darkness pulses with intent. The night is pregnant with it, but the dawn's pale fingers are still hours away, and when they finally break the sky, the fields will hold more than dew. They will hold the echo of screams yet unborn. Mini cliffhanger. What does vengeance sound like when the hunted become hunters? In the oppressive heat of Mississippi's Delta, 1852, the plantation stretches eternally, white-tailed leaves bent with dew, rows of cotton-like ratlines to an unseen sky. The air hangs stained with the acrid scent of sweat and earth, and beneath it, the thudding hammer-beat of labor. Pick, drop, stack. Every movement is a prayer for tomorrow, every breath a fugitive act of defiance. The overseer, a gaunt figure, whose jaw juts out like a broken plank, patrols the fields. His eyes skim the backs of the enslaved men, calculating, cruel, empty of mercy. The leather of his whip glistens in the sun, a brutal scepter that rules through terror alone. But these fields are not just soil and cotton. They are crucibles of sorrow and stories. Each man walking those rows carries a name, a stolen history. One has known the crack of his child's sobs across a torn cabin. Another tastes the bitterness of losing a mother to fever. Yet in that stolen grief, they have spun bonds of quiet solidarity. In hidden corners, under rotten floorboards, beneath chipped windows, they whisper of escape, of survival, of retribution. There are names murmured between breaths: Jeremiah, Isaac, Samuel, Boaz, 4 souls linked by grief, by endurance, by the simple humanity the overseer refuses to acknowledge. This is a place where the lash punctuates day and night. It falls without warning, across shoulders, backs, spirits. Each mark is both wound and memory, a summons to brokenness. And yet, from brokenness, something perverse and beautiful can bloom, the seed of vengeance. Ask yourself, as you visualize the fields heavy with humidity and dread, what does desperation look like when hope is taught only in clandestine whispers? In one misaligned cabin, the floor creaks under muffled meetings. A scrap of rope is passed discreetly from hand to hand. Eyes shift. Plans take root. They measure the overseer's patterns, how he emerges from the main house at midnight, how he chuckles like a butcher tasting fat, how he never looks over his shoulder. They learn, below that oppressive sky, that power is fragile when stripped. of witness and arrogance. The air in that cabin is thick with anticipation, the scent of kerosene lamps, the rustle of straw, the iron tang of the box filled with crude rope. It's a flashpoint, wrought from longing for dignity, for justice, for a moment when chains break. You feel it in your chest, the slow heat of righteous fire, but the night is still young, and before the eruption of vengeance there is only this. A taut silence, the fields breathing around them, and 4 men poised between rage and action. Mini cliffhanger. And when the night of reckoning finally arrives, will the fields bear witness or be stolen by screams? Day bleeds into dusk, and with each inch of darkness, dread coils tighter. A brutal whipping the day before marked the breaking point. The overseer, intoxicated by cruelty, lashed without abandon. His victim's cries wrenched the air until bodies nearby flinched, and the sound's ringing echo became the final spark. That cruelty, a collision of flesh and whip, stirred something feral in the 4 men. The memory of flesh tearing, of humiliation, of power seized and wielded without mercy. It has become their fuel. But what no one saw was how the overseers' violence fed the storm gathering beneath tired skin and bruised ribs. They move like shadows. Jeremiah keeps watch by the well. Isaac hides from patrolling feet, coiled with silent determination. Samuel trembles only with purpose. Boaz, steady, as the graves below the fields grips the rope that will bind the overseer. The air tastes of iron and sweat, and somewhere a whip lies dormant, waiting for its song. They have observed every detail: the overseer's route from the quarters to the main house, the rhythm of his gait, the way he hums a song with no joy. Tonight they'll exploit complacency. One watches from the edge of a clearing, the moonlight a pale witness. Another holds back the cabin door, heart thudding like a hunting drum. Every crack of a twig is thunder to them, even the whip in his coat pocket, curled like a viper, carries menace that chills marrow. The tension tightens. The whispers become silent prayers. They dare not exhale. In the hush, one voice cracks. "Do you hear that? His boots." They freeze. Bootsteps ripple across the moonlit path, the overseer returning too early. In that moment, time fractures. Breath hisses through teeth. Eyes lock in the dark. They catch each other's shadows. But beneath that fear, there is determination deeper than despair. They step into the clearing as he enters. The cotton heave like ghosts around them. He ponders them, puzzled, then laughs. That laugh, hollow, arrogant, pours fuel onto their rage. There's no turning back now. The air sours, thick with inevitability. As the overseer lifts his lantern to squint at them, Jeremiah spits a single sentence. "Tonight, thunder answers your lash." The lantern trembles. They pounce. The struggle is immediate. Cloth is torn. Muscles strain. Hands curl into flesh. Ask yourself, when the fangs of vengeance finally snake outward, do you flinch or watch, horrified and transfixed? In that brutal collision, power falters. The whip's leather uncoils, not in fear, but in invocation. They drag him into the dark. The world narrows to hot, ragged breaths, the rasp of cloth against skin, the wet shock of blood under moonlight. This is the moment before release, the pivot between submission and retribution. The world holds its breath. Mini cliffhanger, and when the whip cracks in violent song, who will learn the taste of fear? The clearing, drenched in moonlight, becomes an altar of violence. 4 men, long suppressed, stand poised around their oppressor. The lantern flickers, casting grotesque shadows across broken ribs and wild eyes. The overseer's arrogance has shattered, replaced by shock. His hand darts for the whip. Too late. Boaz grabs his wrist. Iron deadwood grips flesh. The scuffle is fierce. Each second pulses with desperate dread. The overseer's lantern swings, light dancing across his sweat-darkened skin, his mouth, an open wound of panic. But they are no longer hunted. They are hunters. Isaac holds the lantern high enough to rim the overseer's horrified face with light. Jeremiah kneels, securing rope at his wrists. Samuel bristles with suppressed power, fingers twitching for release. The air tastes metallic with fear and adrenaline. The sound of the whip coil crawling toward release echoes like prophecy. Then, it cracks, first once as the lash connects with flesh. Flesh tears, a sharp, splintering sound as skin parts beneath brutal leather. The overseer's scream rips the stillness. Each lash peels away arrogance, layer by tortured layer. Blood blossoms across his back, bright, alive, irrepressible. The scent of copper floods the night. He collapses into the dirt, gasping, broken. They strike again and again. The whip becomes their chorus of vengeance. Every lash is a requiem for every wound he inflicted on them and countless others. Each swing is deliberate. No frenzy, no mercy, exact retribution measured in searing welts. Ask yourself, if injustice is a wound, then is vengeance the healing, or another scar? The overseer's voice becomes gargled, lost in ragged gulps. His pleas are strangled. But the cruelty he meted in daylight is being returned in midnight's unerring justice. You feel the whips crack as if echoing in your bones, a sound both monstrous and necessary. The cotton leaves murmur overhead, witnessing what power does when turned. The night air shudders with each strike, each cry. They fight, not just for themselves, but for the broken souls beneath their boot heels, for stolen mothers, for lost children. Each lash is for those unseen, unvoiced. Yet, in the moment of vengeance's crescendo, the overseer no longer fights. He just bleeds and gasps and shudders, humanity unmasked in pain. At last, they step back. The whip uncoils, droops. Silence blankets the field. Seared, stained silence. The overseer lies bound and broken, his brutality punished by his own, instrument of terror. The fields themselves seem to recoil. The cotton rows like mourners in white. The lamplight trembles, lantern guttering. The four men stand over him, not triumphant, but transformed. Their breathing is ragged, their bodies trembling, not from fear, but from the fierce release of years. There is no triumph here, only weary justice. It's not vengeance for vengeance's sake, but redemption carved into bone and blood. They look at each other, silent, eyes glinting in empathy and pain. The whip, hanging limp, is no longer a symbol of their oppression. It's their testament, but the night offers no sanctuary. The distant howl of a hound, the faint echo of crashing shutters, retribution has consequences. They've broken more than backs tonight. They've broken the plantation's illusion of invincibility. Mini cliffhanger. As dawn waits beyond the horizon, who will hunt, the freed or the shattered? Dawn creeps forward. The night's violence has left a bruise upon the earth. The overseer lies unconscious, perhaps alive, perhaps not. Blood seeps into the soil. The men step back, breath heavy, senses frayed. The air is damp with the hiss of spirits roused. They gather themselves, each one a shadow of what he once was, transformed by righteous fury. The plantation quivers. Behind shuttered windows, women whisper, children stare, and fellow enslaved. Souls hold their breath. The world tilts. Fear ripples outward. No one speaks. The overseer's barn, his office, the quarters lie silent. Even the wind seems to pause. In the quarters, trembling hands fetch water to wash wounds, to steady minds. Yet behind closed eyes the image burns. The whips strike, the overseer's cries, the release of retribution. Panic mounts among the white owners. Horses are startled. Alarms echoed across fields. The hounds yap, rattling chains. There is talk of reward, of reprisal. Guards form around the quarters, axes at ready. But within the darkness of the cabins, the four are spectral, already incipient phantoms slipping toward freedom or fate. We can only wonder, were they running toward liberation or another kind of reckoning? They share a final glance, silent as ancestors' warnings. Jeremiah loosens the rope, holding them back from flight. Isaac retrieves a scrap of torn cloth to bind his spared hands. Samuel listens for the patter of pursuit. Boaz scans the horizon, first light creeping across, the fields a pale promise. Ask yourself, when justice is enacted, does fear become its companion or its conqueror? One by one, they slip away, gathered under the cloak of first light. Footsteps gone soft. They pass through a cotton row that once held nothing but drudgery. Now, it's a corridor of emancipation. Behind them, the overseer stirs, perhaps able to testify, perhaps not. The plantation's sleep unravels as the horizon blooms with color, heavy with dread. The birds don't sing yet. Too much has changed. The fields, soaked with dew and dishonor, are alive with question. Will the plantation pursue, or will it fracture in fear? Will rumors bloom to incite terror, or inspire dormant courage? The four men vanish into memory and myth. But the night they left behind will endure. Through whispers at cabin doors, in lullabies murmured to trembling children, in the haunted hush beneath nighttime stars. Their vengeance becomes fuel for something more than hope. It becomes a legend, and with legend comes power, quiet but irrevocable. Mini cliffhanger. And as their silhouettes disappear into dawn, one wonders, does vengeance live on, or does it slip into myth? Centuries later, their story resurfaces in hushed voices. A folk tale passed by firelight. The night of the whip's reckoning. The fields of Mississippi, where once cotton whispered and chains rattled, carry an echo that refuses silence. Legends bloom where injustice met vengeance, and this one especially became folklore to stir ghosts and remind the oppressed that even the darkest chains can be snapped. But what no one saw at a first glance was how the act carved itself into memory, not just as vengeance, but as testament. Documentary records are scarce, drowned by the overseer's family's retelling, yet oral tradition survives, grandchildren speaking of four spirits whose fury left blood upon the fields. Ask yourself, if stories are the bloodlines of our past, which ones do you let flow? History lovers recall the event as a tremor in the narrative of control. True crime fans trace the raw, gothic horror of hours when justice seethed beneath the earth. Gothic mystery seekers, drawn to the cadenced symmetry of whip and flesh, understand that darkness is not only atmosphere, but witness. Here, in the hush of modern nights, we still tremble at that story's resonance. The plantation is gone. Fields give way to roads and settlements, but the place where vengeance was wrought remains haunted. A knot of roots deep in that dirt holds the shape of four men's rage and sorrow. If you walk there, you might feel the soil pulse beneath your feet. Southern breeze might carry a faint echo of leather on flesh. For each listening today, the legend asks, when cruelty rises, who answers the call? It's not merely a question of vengeance, but of legacy. The shadows of those four men linger, asking every listener, would you have done the same? And so the story fades, morphing into folklore. Yet its echoes persist. A whisper among historians, a shudder in the night, a reminder that beneath tyranny, the human will still reaches for justice. Final haunting line. In the hush between dusk and dawn, remember, the whip may fall silent, but vengeance never truly dies.